Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today, our first December council meeting. We have a lot on the agenda today, so we're going to get started. Thank you for coming. I'm going to ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Conflict of Interest Act. Hearing none, we're going to move along to get a resolution moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Popovitz, that the minutes of the town of Minto, November 18th, 2025, regular council meeting be approved. All in favor of the motion? Thank you. That's carried. Got a resolution moved by Councillor Gunson, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the town of Minto council convene into committee of the whole. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. We have a delegation today, and so I'm going to pass the chair to Councillor Dirksen, who is chair of our Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mayor.
Dirksen.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. And I'm going to turn it over to Treasurer Duff, who will introduce our delegation.
Great. Thank you, Chair Dirksen. Yes, I'm pleased to introduce our primary consultants from Watson and Associates, Economist Limited. We've been working on this project for probably a little over a year now, I think. So it's going to be water and wastewater today. Much of our work is intimately connected with the development charges background study, and that'll be coming forward at some point in early 2026. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy, and she will run through her presentation, and then I'll have a couple of reports.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry. And is the present, do you want me to share the presentation, or is it going to be shared on screen? Am I able to share?
It will be shared by well,
It cannot be shared at this time because of the Zoom.
yeah.
So but all council
it's on
members
the
have it
agenda.
on their screens to see. They have their agendas on their laptops, but it will not be shown on the screen.
Okay, not a problem. I just didn't know if it was being shown for the public that may be dialing in. So good afternoon. My name is Nancy Neal. I am a manager with Watson and Associates Economist Limited, and have been working with Gord and the team at the town for months now to bring to you the presentation that we're going to walk through today. I do want to note when we get to slide 9, there was we found a minor error in the labeling that has been fixed, and you'll be sent an updated version so that you have the final one after the meeting today. So the purpose of the study is twofold, looking at both the water and wastewater rates, as well as the water financial plan that you need for licensing purposes. What we have been focused on mainly is the rates, that making sure that we update all of the assumptions for the volumes that are being used for water and wastewater, looking really at recent trends over the last few years to see where average consumption has been for customers, and then being able to apply those assumptions to growth as we are looking out over 10 years. We want to ensure that we are building new customers into the forecast, and the volumes that they will use, and then the revenues that they will generate as well will come out of that. So that has all been embraced. We have a draft growth related forecast that we're using for the development charge purpose for that study, and we've utilized the same growth assumptions from that in the rate study so that the two documents will align. We've also looked at what the capital needs are. We've been working with Triton Engineering as well to ensure that we've identified all of the asset replacement needs that you have coming forward, as well as the growth-related capital, some of which will be fully paid for through development charges, However, other portions or other projects have components that are both growth related and have a replacement component that will be funded through the rates to get a full capital forecast in place for you. And then, of course, we look at different funding methodologies to finance all of that capital as it comes forward in the forecast. In addition to that, we look at long-term impacts. So not just this forecast period we're looking at, but understanding you have a lot of assets in place and you will have future replacement needs for existing infrastructure as well as your growth infrastructure once it's in place in future years. We make sure that we look at the full cost of your systems to ensure that you're trying to put away money into reserves, building that into your rates so that wherever possible, it can mitigate future debt needs. And the money is there when you need to replace assets outside this forecast period too. So we don't just have blinders on for this 10 years. In addition to that, we've looked at alternative rate structures to recover those costs. We'll get into those scenarios in a few slides. And we've also embraced the day-to-day operating costs that are necessary, as well as the capital-related operating expenses for those transfers to reserves or annual debt payments of principal and interest when debt is required to help finance the capital. That is sort of an impact on the assessment of the rate structures for a customer has been provided as well. To give you a bit of a legislative context, over the past 2.5 decades, the province has passed a number of pieces of legislation related to water and wastewater servicing since the Walkerton crisis, for those of us who remember that. The Safe Drinking Water Act was put in place in 2002, and there's a regulation under that, 45307, that actually is the piece of legislation that requires you to update and submit to the ministry every 5 years a financial plan that helps you get your license renewed. And that is one of the components we have provided in a separate report that'll get submitted to the province with a number of other documents for licensing purposes. As well, there's other pieces of legislation that were put in place but not necessarily fully enacted. Some have been repealed, but they really have set out the rules and methodology in which municipalities throughout the province are following when undertaking full cost recovery methods for rate recovery for water and wastewater services. So the Sustainable Water and Sewage Systems Act of 2022, the Clean Water Act of 2006, and the Water Opportunities Act of 2010 have all helped frame the methodology we utilize. In addition, there are requirements under the Ontario Municipal Infrastructure Strategy that help develop the methodology. And of course, the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperities Act of 2015 is the act that requires you to deal with asset management. Looking at what your current rates are, right now you charge a base charge, so it's a fixed charge for customers that are metered, regardless of the amount of water or utilized or wastewater utilized. They pay an amount, and that really varies by the size of the meter, so that larger customers that are on larger meters get more water are paying a proportionate share in addition to what a regular residential or small non-residential customer would pay. In addition to that, you have a block structure that is considered a declining block structure, whereby for the first 250 cubic meters utilized, there's a certain rate. Once you go above that, the next 250 cubic meters is at a rate per cubic meter that is slightly less than the first 250 cubic meters. And then going to the third block and fourth block, there's lower amounts again owing on a per cubic meter basis. As well, you do still have some unmetered customers that are on a flat rate. and a few multi-unit customers that pay an additional charge per additional unit on a monthly basis. And of course, you also have on the water side a bulk water purchased rate that is in effect on a per cubic meter basis. The number of customers that you have that are metered are just under 2,570 customers on water and just over 2,500 wastewater customers that are metered. You do still have three non-metered customers. There are those multiple units. There's 577 of them, so that you have a total customer base for water of just under 3,150 and almost 3,100 wastewater customers in total. As noted, we will be adding growth-related customers in the future into the rate analysis. What we do in this case is we assume that new residential customers and multi-unit customers will come onto the system. We don't add anything in for the non-residential customers, and that is to be conservative. We're not saying that non-residential customers new ones will not join the system, but it's very difficult to know whether a non-residential customer will be a very small water user or a very large water user based on the size of the buildings that we're anticipating through the development charge study, because you could have a very large warehouse, for example, that's a very small water user, or you could have a smaller facility that's a very large water user, just depending on what the use is and what the process is in place. So for conservativeness, we don't add customers in for non-residential. What that will do when you do have non-residential customers added in will give you a little bit of a surplus at the end of the year that will help to mitigate cost fluctuations and other cost drivers throughout the year. For the residential customers, for every new residential customer, we assume 50% of usage for the first year. So understanding some new customers will come on early in the year, some late in the year, depending on when they occupy their new unit. We assume that on average, a new customer in the first year will only generate about 50% of the average volumes. For residential, what we've assumed, excluding those apartment units, is an average of 140 cubic meters per customer that will be generated. That's based on that historical data over the last few years that we've looked at. That is in the range of what your residential customers are currently using. And for those apartment units, they're utilizing about 90 cubic meters per unit annually. So that is what we have included. So you will see that in total, where your customers currently 3,160 or 3,148, we're assuming that by the end of the forecast period to 2036, you will have approximately 3,840 customers. And with that, you can see that with the different volume blocks, most of those customers fall into that first block, those new customers. So we haven't assumed any of the new customers will generate volumes in excess of that first volume amount. Again, a little bit conservative. Some of them might tip over that amount, and if so, they'd be charged that additional fee. Similarly, for wastewater, the customers currently 3,085 as of the beginning of this year, and that will grow to about 3,777 units by the end of 2036. And again, the volumes with them being that most of them are the smaller units for residential, we're assuming in that first block rate will generate the volumes. So you'll be increasing volumes on your wastewater side from about 568,000 cubic meters a year up to almost 668,000 cubic meters per year. With the capital, we have looked at a number of different sources, including your 2025 approved capital budget and forecast, the 26 draft budget, as well as the water and wastewater system servicing strategy, your 2025 asset management plan, and the growth-related projects out of that draft development charge background study to really put together a full capital program looking at the needs, the timing, and the costs associated with all of the works needed. What that generates, and this is the slide number 9, where we found a minor error, and there will be a correction sent to you afterwards. It's really labeling, but in total for 2025, you had just over $600,000 of capital expenditures related to water and about 563,000 related to wastewater. Going forward over the 2026 to 2036, really 11-year forecast, there is extensive amount of work that is required to be put in place, with almost $37 million over that time frame for water needed, and just under $73 million for your wastewater services needed. As you can see from this slide, we have provided a number of different funding sources for that forecast, including some grant funding that's expected, as well as revenues from the development charges for those growth-related components, some debt, of course, where necessary, and the utilization of funds in your water and wastewater reserves as well. As noted, we looked at your asset management plan, and based on the 2025 asset management plan, your water and wastewater existing infrastructure totals over $165.8 million worth of infrastructure currently in place today to service the customers that are hooked into these systems. Based on what that is and the number of customers, really what you're looking at is an investment for every customer that's on water and wastewater of over $53,000 per customer. So a substantial amount of investment that the town has made into these two services. To ensure that going forward, you can replace all of the assets that are coming due when they come due, we do a sinking fund calculation, which really looks at if I was putting money aside, investing it, making and earning interest on it, how much would I have to put away every year so that as the assets come due, I have the funding to pay for that. And that calculation works out to just over $2.4 million for the two services combined. When we're looking at your operating budget, of course, you don't forecast out 11 years for operating expenses, but we have worked with staff to look at where inflationary impacts are typical for certain types of operating expenses on the day-to-day. And we've taken your current budget and inflated that out. We have made some adjustments, about 7.5% annually for chemicals and water sampling and testing, which is what has been utilized in the past, as well as 5% annual inflation on insurance, utilities, and taxes, and then 2% for all other expenditures. So that is what is being built into these rates for the forecast. As well, there's some miscellaneous revenues in operating for things such as turn on and turn off fees, meter sales, etc. For those types of operating expenses or revenues, we've held them constant, again, to be conservative. Hopefully you will get a little bit more on the miscellaneous revenues, but for now we've held them constant over the forecast period at your current levels. When looking at slide 12, this is a diagram that really shows you in the dark blue at the bottom that sort of annual inflationary impacts on the day-to-day operating expenses. And then the orange component at the top of the graph relates to the capital related operating expenses. So the transfers to the reserves, the payment of the debt charges, principal and interest that take place in future years when you've debenture financed some of the capital expenditures. So in total, right now for 2026, you're looking at combined day-to-day operating and capital related operating of just under 2.5 million for the water service, and that increasing to almost 4.7 million by the end of 2036. Similarly, for wastewater, the current expenditures expected for 2026 total just over 2.77 million, and expecting that will increase by 2036 to about 3.72 million. So as noted at the beginning, we did undertake some scenarios of different rate structures. So as I mentioned, for those metered customers, there's a base charge amount that varies by the size of the meter, and then there's a declining block rate for the consumption or volume usage for water and wastewater that is really declines as you use more water. So that is the scenario one, which is really to maintain your existing rate structure. We then looked at whether or not keeping your base charges the way they are, but changing that declining block rate to a constant block rate. So regardless of how much water you use, you will pay the same amount per cubic meter. And then, of course, scenario three looks at the inverse, where instead of having a declining block rate, you would increase the rate at each block as you utilize more water or wastewater. What that resulted in under scenario one, which is your status quo, was increases over the forecast period of 5% to your base charge annually. And then for those volumetric rates per cubic meter, they would be increasing at 4% for 2026 to 2030, 3% from 2031 to 2033, and then 2% annually out to 2036. For wastewater, the base charges would increase at 3% annually, and then there'd be absolutely no change to the current volumetric rates that are in place today. So they'd be held constant with no inflation. Under the second scenario, where we move to a constant rate, the base charges would be slightly less with a 4% annual increase over the entire forecast period, and the volume rates set in 2026 at the first block rate that's in existence now in 2025, and then having a 3% annual increase over the forecast period from 27 onward. For wastewater, those base charge increases would be 2% annually over the current rates, and then again setting that first block rate in 2026 at the 25 first block rate, and then again there'd be no increases to that going forward over the forecast period. For the third scenario, which is the inverse, having an increasing block rate, your base charges would be set for water at the 5% annual increases, then setting that block rate for 2026 at the first current block rate with 3% annual increases going forward after that in the forecast. And then wastewater, again, 3% annual increases over the forecast, and the volume rates actually initially declining to the first block rate in 2026 and then being held constant over the forecast period. What that looks like, if you go to slide 17, is really trying to give you a sense of how will that impact a residential customer that is on either a 5-inch or 3/4-inch meter, which are the smallest one, using that average 140 cubic meters per year. And right now, under the three scenarios, the current customer would be paying about $1,510 this year in 2025 with that usage. That would be growing to just over $2,000 for 2036. Under the scenario two, where we change to a constant volume rate, that $500 or $1,510 for the service now would grow to just over $1,960 by the end of the forecast period. And then going to the third scenario, that inverse increasing block rate, the 1510 would grow to about $1,871 over the forecast period. So similar changes, um, initial decrease for scenario 3 for the small residential customer. But then, of course, the other customers that utilize more water would see a difference. And really, what that is, we've then taken a larger non-residential customer, giving you the same kind of comparison for someone that's on a 3-inch meter using about 5,340 cubic meters per year. What they would be paying currently of $30,844 would increase in the current status quo to about $39,159 that they'd be paying. Moving to a constant rate, they would be paying more because they wouldn't be getting that break on the volumes in excess of the first block or two. And so they would be paying $46,253 by the end of the forecast. And then, of course, where we do the inverse and have an increasing block rate, they would be paying proportionately even more for those additional volumes in the higher blocks and would be growing up to $48,823 over this time period. To give you a sense of where those rates compare with other municipalities around you and their rates that are in place, slide 18 provides that residential comparison, and you'll see that currently you're slightly above the middle. Just over that $1,500 mark, just under the $1,500 mark per year, but really changing to the proposed scenario 1 would get you to closer to the higher range of your comparators. The scenario 2, which is what we're proposing to go to that constant rate, would get you slightly less than that. And of course, the scenario 3 for the residential customer would be significantly lower on the scale. But I do want to note that quite a few of the comparators here, unless noted, are all based on 2025 rates. And many of them will also be increasing their rates in 2026. We just don't have that data for the comparison. For that larger customer, slide 20 gives a comparison of where they would be falling. And of course, where they currently are is about mid-pack. And with any of the scenarios, including the status quo, they would be moving up compared to other municipalities' rates that are in place currently today, or for a couple that are proposed that we are aware of in 26. The third scenario with that increasing block would see them second highest to the comparators. That is the end of sort of the rate study side of things. I do want to touch on that water financial plan and explain that starting on slide 22. As noted, municipalities are required to be licensed to operate the water systems in the province. And part of the licensing requirement is to submit a financial plan to the province once every 5 years. The Regulation 45307 requirements, there are 5 key elements that have to be provided to gain your municipal license. The plan that we have looked at is included and follows a methodology that is recognized by the province to get your renewal of the license. It does have to include a minimum of 6 years, with the first year of the financial plan being the year in which your license expires, which for you is 2026. So the forecast that we've provided in the financial plan is based on the rate study. So it actually provides more years than the minimum requirements that the province has for that 6 years. And it is a regulation under the Safe Drinking Water Act that makes these financial plans mandatory for water. They're encouraged for wastewater, but not required for wastewater at this time. Sorry, let me move on. Understanding that annually you go through your budget process, growth, actual growth will change. Maybe condition of assets that we're planning will change. And therefore, the province does realize that it's a living document and we are trying to forecast year-end statements for future years where a lot of the moving parts will change on any given basis. So they do understand this is a point in time analysis, and what they're really looking for is to ensure that you are planning ahead for the future health of the water system. It does include PSAB or Public Sector Accounting Board requirements. So it's more of an accounting document than a budgeting tool. And there are differences in that that I'll explain a little bit more in a future slide, just so that you understand the differences. But we do look at tangible capital assets, total non-financial assets, betterments, write-downs, disposals, etc., total assets, total liabilities, and net debt as part of the calculations for the financial plan. They do have to be made available upon request of the public without charge, just so that you're aware. And of course, they should be on your municipal website once they're approved. As noted, the reporting is mandatory for water. The legislation is intended to ensure that municipalities provide future activities for capital, including that inventory or asset renewal, operating expenses, reserves, and usage by customers, and then really provide it in an accounting type document or financial statement format for future years. If you look at slide 26, that really kind of explains the difference between your rate study or what you do in budgeting, which is forward-looking, versus the financial plan or accounting statements, which is really typically looking backwards at actuals. So your rate study is done on a modified cash basis, similar to your budget, where the accounting document for the financial plan is done on a full accrual basis. Some of the differences in there is in your rate study, we look at the capital forecast, which may include non-tangible capital assets such as studies. If you had to undertake a master plan or an EA, that doesn't result in a tangible capital asset, but is at an amount that is typically capitalized. On the financial plan, we can only include those tangible capital assets as capital. So we do have to reclassify any studies as operating expenses. As well, we look at, in your rate study, future replacement costs for your assets. You cannot obviously replace based on historic costs or even current costs. So we want to make sure in your rates we're building in future inflationary costs that you will have to spend to actually replace your system. However, for the financial plan, it's based on historical costs of what was actually spent when an asset was put in place. And then there is amortization expenses that write those assets down to the point where when they meet or reach their useful life, they're at a net book value of zero. Of course, you can't replace it at that point at zero. And so that's one of the major differences between the two documents. As well, for debt, we want to make sure in your rate study we are the rates are able to fund both the principal and interest requirements and payments that you have to make. But on the financial statements, interest is considered an expense and principal is considered or a debt reduction. So just a different way of really categorizing the expenses and revenues is what we have to go through. Transfers to reserve is considered an expense in your rate study or budget. It's part of accumulated surplus in your financial plan. And then development charges are considered a reserve fund continuity that you utilize. Money comes in and you spend it towards the capital needs for the rate study. it's considered deferred revenue in accounting terms. So for those who aren't accountants, this is one of the most difficult, translations, trying to understand when they look at the rate study or their budget versus the financial plan. But there are these differences. Really, what we've got is a balanced statement of operations that is based on the 2026 budget that's in the rate study. And then we look out over the longer term as well for other future expenditures and revenues, reclassification to ensure that your your water system is financially viable. Your statement of financial position is again reclassified with some adjustments on the differences as to how we have to classify some of the expenses and revenues, but again is balanced. And then really some of the key indicators and show that between the forecast period of 26 to 36, you're expecting a decrease in net financial assets. However, that is due to the tangible capital assets increasing significantly by almost $29 million. And of course, your accumulated surplus is then also increasing by about $20 million over that period, that net between the two. One of the key indicators we look at is the amount of expenses you have to a revenue ratio. 1-to-1 is always great, but you're increasing that ratio from where you are in 2026 of about 41% up to 51%. So that's a good indicator that your system is healthy and moving towards being able to be fully sustainable. For your statement of changes in financial position, again, there is acquisitions cumulatively of almost $36 million in new tangible capital assets, and your annual surplus before that amortization is growing at $27.2 million over the period. At the end of the 2026 year, we're anticipating that cash or cash equivalents will be about 4.55 million in 2026. And that because you're spending so much money on new capital assets over this forecast period, the cash or cash equivalents at the end of 2036 is expected to be at about $2.1 million. So lower than where you're expected to be in 2026. Moving forward, it's up to council to consider, the full cost recovery method that's embraced in the rate study for both water and wastewater services, making sure that the capital plans that you have in place are approved and move into your budgeting annually. And of course, making sure that you decide on which of the 3 rate scenarios you want imposed so that staff go forward with the right one for the new year. They are recommending scenario 2, which is a slight change from where you currently are, which is moving from that declining block rate structure for the volume component of your rate to a constant rate. It does help with conservation. And it does help generate a bit more revenue from your non-residential customers while not putting as much stress on your residential customers moving forward. And of course, your consideration of the water financial plan, you do need to have a resolution passing the water financial plan. Go with the submission for your license approval to the ministry. And that water financial plan was based on scenario 2, the recommended rate structure change. If for some reason you chose one of the other 2 scenarios, we would have to refine that water financial plan before it got submitted to the province. So that is my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions council members have.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Maybe we'll hear the report from Treasurer Duff. Let's start with the water and wastewater rate review because we kind of got into both of them. So we'll start with that one.
Great. Excellent. Very well explained, Nancy. Especially as an accountant, I liked your explanation between what the rate study is and the financial plan, because that's the exact explanation we try and do along with the auditors between what our budget is and what our financial statements are. And as you say, they're based on different assumptions, especially with regard to principal payments and acquiring assets. So I'm not going to rehash what you've already said, but my first report is regarding the water and the wastewater study. That's the one that really is the foundation for the financial plan. So I think we've gone through the reasons like we are at this declining block status, and we've been on that for, I think, 3 cycles at least. I think it was the proper one to do at when it was brought in. But as we know, things have changed. Minto has changed. And I think it's a good move, especially for moving towards encouraging water conservation and perhaps spreading the rates a bit more fairly. I also want to take the time to recognize the contributions of Todd, Mark, Tanya, Jackie, Ryan, and Chris Clark of Triton Engineering. We've had at least 24 meetings on this, and many, many versions, and a lot of work has gone into the, I think 118 pages in the rate study, the detailed, and just trying to like crystal ball in this environment of rapid inflation and everything, and just see what are the priority projects, and at the same time, what's related to replacing existing and what is growth related. And if it is growth related, can we put that on either external donations, contributions, development charges, and that too. And also try and forecast, well, what's the balance between what we can afford from our own resources, borrowing, grants, they're so hard to predict. So we don't put a lot of weight on grants. Just recognizing that some of these, for Minto, mega projects, such as a new sewer plant, they're beyond our resources. And they just won't go forward without funding from other levels of government. So I think staff is unanimous in recommending scenario 2. However, as Nancy stated, all 3 scenarios will meet the requirements of the various legislations. So, so that's that one.
Okay, so I'll read that recommendation and then we can ask questions. Moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Zimmerman, that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives Report Finance 2025-018, Water and Wastewater Rate Review, prepared by the Treasurer, Water Services Manager, and Wastewater Services Manager for information purposes. And further, that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby approves implementing Scenario 2 as outlined in the 2025 Water and Wastewater Rate Study, prepared and presented by Watson and Associates Economists Limited, dated November 24th, 2025. Are there any questions? Mayor Turton.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So Gord, I don't know whether you or Nancy, if the statement of operations on page 29, and those 2 numbers, expense to revenue ratio, 41% in 26 and 51 in 36. Like if those are decent numbers, what's a bad number? Can you?
A bad number would be if, especially in a trend, that your expenses kept running like far ahead of revenues and you were creating an unsustainable deficit. Like there's going to be the odd year, probably due to an increase in capital spending, where it will go down. But if your revenues are not covering your costs, the full costs, you're not in a good position just from a financial point of view. You're also not adhering to the legislation because it's supposed to be full cost recovery. Nancy, if you want to say anything more
Yeah,
on that?
yeah. Just further to what Gord was saying, again, you know, having it showing that it's increasing is showing that you're also taking into consideration what's coming due just outside this forecast period, because there is more assets coming due. And if you saw that percentage decreasing, what it means is you're really not saving for the future replacement either. And if there are major fluctuations, which we've seen recently, where we were seeing double-digit inflation factors through COVID years, if something like that was to come back and hit you again and utilize more of your revenues to pay for those expenses, it means that you're really not trying to be forward-looking and try and put away for the future, understanding things will change plus or minus here or there throughout the forecast period. But what this is showing is that you are forward looking and that you are recognizing we don't have blinders on. We're not just looking at this, short period, which, 11 years doesn't seem like a short period to some people, but when you have assets that, exist and will be, can have a lifespan of 80 to 100 years, it is a short period in that timeline. So it is a positive that that percentage is increasing over the forecast period.
Thank you. Can I have a second question?
Yes, of course.
So I mean, a lot of these numbers are growth related for sure. So what happens? I mean, in the last couple of years, our growth that was projected 5 years ago or 8 years ago is nowhere near where the projections are. So are we looking at catching up? So, in 26 or let's say 25, we had, I'm going to throw a number out there, 25 housing starts in Minto. And that's absolutely wrong, I'm sure. So we're anticipating in 26, are things going to change? And then in 27, all of a sudden we have a flourish of people wanting houses, so it might bump up to 100. So I guess my question is, when we're making assumptions, it's the best possible assumption. Okay, and so we're looking forward and we're looking ahead and trying to predict the future.
Very, very true. And we're trying to smooth it out too, because in reality, it'll be up and down. But we're trying to say, well, it's going to go along like that. Watson's also do a lot of work for the county, and many of our growth projections come from talking with the county. I'm also talking with like local building departments like ours too. The forecast growth for the last couple of years has been way below expectations. It sounds like, interest rates have stabilized and declined a bit. Unfortunately, we have terrible, economic and tariff related uncertainty. But again, assuming we can get past this situation, I think growth will continue. I think there's still a demand for people that want to come to our community, and so if it goes there, but you're right, these forecasts could be too optimistic or too pessimistic, and although we're talking 10 years, we are reviewing this in 5 because it's mandatory, so that you have a opportunity for mid-course correction, I guess.
Yeah, let me jump in there just further to what Gord was saying too. Keep in mind that with the growth, water and wastewater infrastructure, to an extent has to be in place before you can issue the permits. So it is staff have to be very mindful of how much growth is actually taking place and when they go forward with the capital program. So if growth continues to slow, and this is where I was mentioning the province recognizes the financial plan's a living document. If growth continues to slow, some of those capital works that are planned will through future budget year processes be moved out to ensure that you're not putting a whole lot of infrastructure in the ground that isn't needed for growth that isn't happening. On the flip side, there are ebbs and flows in growth and in the economy. And as the economy, speeds up, growth may speed up. You may actually in other years, later in the forecast period, find yourself having to bring some capital forward. And do it sooner to make sure that it's in place so that you can issue those building permits. So the actual amount of take up and the infrastructure that needs to be put in place to service that for water and wastewater is something that staff monitor annually and through the budget process make those adjustments. So yes, certainly it's a point in time right now of what our assumptions are. We have been conservative for the first few years of this forecast with adding new customers. We don't want to add too many if they don't come, because that could potentially then run deficits in your systems. So we have slowed down the first couple of years on what the growth needs are based on, discussions with staff and what's in your planning process right now and building permit process as to actual, projects that or properties that we actually see will develop over that timeline. So hopefully that helps as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. And Councillor Podnowitz, you have a question?
Yes, through you, Chair Dirksen. On slide 18, I'm looking at the non-residential, and in particular, the scenario 2. There's quite a jump there from the current rate to the 2026 rate of like almost $8,000. Is that, are you trying to play catch up or?
Yeah, I'll let Nancy explain further. Again, we're switching from the declining to the constant. So in the first year, yes, there's going to be a huge change because we're moving away from paying reduced rates for larger amounts to paying a constant rate. So yes, you are definitely going to see it. There's no doubt about that. There's going to be an adjustment in the first year, and it will affect a select number of non-residential customers. For sure.
Follow up there. Could that not be spread over the period to 2036 and added marginally over each year?
Possibly, like any of those changes can be made. However, they will have effects. And Nancy, if you want to explain what the effects will be.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to sort of phase that in, right? What it means is other customers will have to pay more than what we've projected. You still have to recover all your costs at the end of the day. So if you want to, reduce that change from the declining block to something somewhere in the middle, for example, for a year or two to smooth that change for the non-residential customer in, you would have to, on the flip side, do the same for the other customers where you'd have a higher increase for the first few years because you still need to recover the same amount. And if you're not recovering it from the non-residential customers, or the larger customers, you're getting it from all the smaller customers. And then that would smooth out over a period of time too, with maybe higher than what we anticipate increases in the first 2 to 3 years and lower increases thereafter for those customers.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor, so I'll call the question. All in favor? I know it's long. Yeah, thank you. It's a while ago I read that recommendation, so we almost forgot what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the second part then is the water financial plan. So I'll get Treasurer Duff to take us through his
Sure.
report.
Thanks, Dirksen. And as we've said several times, the financial plan flows from the rate study. So the financial plan is based on the recently approved scenario 2. It is one of the requirements under Ontario Regulation 45307. So Mike Doucette, as the compliance officer, is in charge of doing that. There's many operational things, and as you know, we're inspected and audited left and right while our license is in place, but these licenses do expire, and ours will be expiring in about 6 months. So we must send in the financial plan. We did request a bit of an extension, but this is the date that we said we'd have it, and as you can see, this will be our fourth financial plan, all stemming from the Walkerton situation, and here we are. Again, so all of the scenarios prepared by Watson's do meet the requirements of the legislation, but this is the one that we think will be the best. And yeah, and as we say, if there's a council motion to approve, we send that in along with the financial plan. Questions? Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Treasurer Duff. I will read the recommendation and then we can discuss. Moved by Councillor Gunson and seconded by Councillor Elliott that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives Report Finance 2025-019, Water Financial Plan, Ontario Regulation 453-07, prepared by the Treasurer and Compliance Coordinator / QMS representative for information purposes, and further that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby approves and adopts the Town of Minto Water Financial Plan prepared by Watson and Associates Economists Limited, dated November 24th, 2025, and further that the Council of the Town of Minto directs staff to post the adopted Town of Minto Water Financial Plan on the Town of Minto website and advertise that it is available to the public. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I will call a question. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Thank you, Treasurer Duff.
Great.
And
Well,
thank you to
thanks
Nancy.
you and council, and thanks Nancy and Tina. I know there was a lot of weekend and evening work putting this together, and we'll see you on the development charges front.
Thanks so much.
And I'll turn the chair back to the mayor.
Yeah, thank you. So same thing here, Nancy, Tina, on behalf of the council. I know that the number of hours that our staff and your staff have put into this, but is pretty amazing. Some of the pressure that the province puts on our municipalities, sometimes it makes you wonder, but to what happened in Walkerton a number of years ago, I'm pretty certain that it all stemmed from there, and that's the reason why we have to do all this work, and for our staff as well. Thank you very much for all your hard work on this. And I feel likely pretty certain that you're happy that this is passed and is behind us. Not everyone's going to be happy, but we'll just have to go forward and see what happens. So again, thank you for all your hard work. We certainly appreciate it. Moving right along, we're in public question period. The mayor, as chair of the meeting, has a duty to preserve order and maintain decorum throughout the meeting. Although council strives to hear and be responsive to resident concerns in order to preserve order, maintain decorum, and comply with the town's procedural bylaw, I wish to caution any participants in question period that, number one, the questions that use discourteous language will not be permitted. Number two, questions that seek policies or bylaws outside the town's jurisdiction, including policies or bylaws that might violate human rights legislation, will not be permitted. Anything that constitutes speeches or statements not in the form of a question will not be permitted. Repeat questions will not be permitted, including the repetition of questions from prior meetings, and all persons shall be limited to no more than 2 questions. Do we have anyone with a question today? Okay, so we'll move along to correspondence. We have quite a list of items on correspondence here today. Just want to, the first one is a couple of meetings from Maitland Valley. Not sure if there's anything you want to talk about there, Councillor Potnovitz. Moving along, you know, it's pretty general. Some items there. Everyone is well aware. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I just saw. Councillor Dixon just said.
Oh, I
Yeah.
was waiting.
Yeah, so go ahead. Thank you. Yeah, let's.
Were you finished talking about item A?
So I know that the number H there, or letter H, with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, there seems to be some disarray with the proposed consolidations, and I know that our province has put it out there for different municipalities if they want to speak on behalf of whatever in reference to conservation authorities, there's a lot of scrutiny and a lot of discussion, so, Councillor Dirksen, you go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chair. I just wanted to draw council's attention to item 8B, which is the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors, AORS Advanced Fall Newsletter. It could better be called a magazine, I think, because it's 36 pages long. And when I was going through it, I was looking for something from Minto. Looked through all those pictures, wondered if maybe we won a rodeo or something, and blah, blah, blah. On the second last page, I found an article by our CAO, co-authored by our CAO. So well done. And it talks about the leasing, the co-leasing, I'm not sure what you call it, but for mutual benefit between municipalities and CAs. So anyways, I thought it was really well written and it explained the process very well.
Thank you for pointing that out, Councillor Dirksen. I missed that, but certainly will take the time. There it is on the screen.
Look at that.
Greg Fertney,
Who is that guy?
CAO, Town of Minto. Go ahead, Councillor Potnovitz.
Yes, I'd like to bring forward one of those resolutions that are listed in here. I think C, and there's E, there's F, and the G. I think we should support at least one of those resolutions in regards to this implementation of what they're proposing here is for the change in the urban boundaries are consolidating the conservation authorities into one, and from 36, I believe, to 6 different areas. It really irks me when the province does things like this without, I mean, they do have a consultation, but I don't think they're still going to move forward regardless. It really doesn't matter what you say, but I think it's important to have a say here. Some of the other things, I guess, that should be brought up is they've never really provided a cost analysis or anything, what this is going to cost us. And the other thing I noticed on one of the resolutions was there was a lot of land that was donated by local residents and entrusted to conservation authorities as personal legacy for long-term protection, stewardship, and the public good, with the expectation that such lands would be cared for by locally governed conservation authorities. I'm not sure whether this, whether they're going to recognize that, those lands that were donated. I mean, those people did that out of the goodness of their hearts. The other thing I wanted to bring forward is they're going to go to a digital format, I guess, for applications. I'm a little concerned with how they're going to, like, if our office is going to be in Newmarket, how is the Amish community going to apply for an application or for a permit for anything under the conservation? But just some of those questions or items I have, maybe we could incorporate them into a resolution or adopt one of the ones that are on our screen here. If we are going to adopt one, I would consider doing the one from Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. I believe it's a short and sweet, kind of gets the point across.
Okay, so that's C. And so what they're saying here, though, is they're supporting it, a resolution from their council. I'm sure we'll see a lot of these. So you suggesting, Councillor Potnovitz, that we bring this one forward and we support this resolution?
Yeah.
And change some of the names and stuff on it?
We could adopt it or support it as it's written, or we could add more, I guess, to it.
So-
create our own, I guess.
I do know that our CAO has a lot of conservation authority background, and if you want to speak on it, Mr. Fertney, in reference to one of the documents that was sent by yourself.
Certainly, through your Mayor, turn to members of council. I took it upon myself early on in this discussion to provide some comments and queries in regards to the Conservation Authority amalgamation already to the Environmental Registry, but I'm certainly happy to bring forth this and we can send it in as well, or any other comments that council makes or wishes to share, and we can put it all together under one submission, or we could send this on to, if we adopted this particular resolution and change some of the wording to reflect our thoughts and situation, we can pass that on through to MPP Ray or the minister himself. So whichever you'd like to do.
What's your wish, Councillor Potnovitz?
Well, there's a few things I mentioned that I don't think are listed in this resolution. It probably wouldn't hurt to have them added and maybe create, as you said, you've already created a list, maybe add a few more items to that list and generate our own.
Okay, so are you okay with working with our CAO, and is that how do you want to handle this, Emily?
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull this together here. I'm just gonna ask that the council of the town of Minto, sorry, I'm just trying to think of how you want to word this. So you want the CAO to provide that information then?
I believe so, because he's already established some
Yeah.
information. I guess
So you're
some-
instructing the CAO to provide comments to the ministry or to, I'll look to Greg because he's already,
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I can either send it directly through the Environmental Registry of Ontario, or I can submit it to our local MPP, or I could do both, one of the both, whichever council prefers.
I would suggest both.
Okay, so could we have a seconder for thank you, Councillor Elliott? So we're clear on what we need, what we want, Annalee?
yep, you're
Very good.
instructing the CAO.
So we'll vote. What you got something to say, Councillor?
I was just wondering if the CEO knows, it seems that it's not a consultation as much as it's a presentation that this is what they're going to do. They give us a drop dead date when they expect to do it, or how can, are we protesting and it doesn't mean anything, or how do you feel with that?
That's a pretty loaded question.
Yeah,
Through you, Mayor,
Well,
turn to Councillor
Give it a
Elliott.
shot there.
I know what I think.
I believe in the democratic process, so we will put forward our comments and to both through this process. The deadline for comments is December the 22nd of this year, and then any legislative changes they're proposing early spring of 2026. And if things progress further, they're looking at a full implementation as of January 2027. But we and others, I've been reading articles all over the place about other municipalities going through the same process, and we're all going to be a united front and see where our government takes us.
Thanks.
So I sent you an email, Ed. We're invited for a regional engagement session. It's in London. It's the 12th of December. It's from 1 to 3:30. Perfect timing. I mean, they've set it up really well. It's Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock in London. There's likely going to be very few there. But
Maybe
and
ministry
I'm making a
people.
prediction. I apologize.
Ministry people will be there.
Sorry.
Ministry people will be there.
Yep. So I sent you that. So myself and Steve McCabe are going to go down. And so if you want to come as well, Steve's our representative to Saugeen.
You may not want me there.
Oh, no, we want you there.
Okay.
So have a look at it if, you know, so let's vote on the motion. Everybody understands the motion? All right, all in favor of the motion? That's carried. Any other ones? Go ahead, Counselor Benson.
Just wondering about D, Life Outdoor Show request for support.
Okay, so we're being asked again from the Clifford Rotary. Gordon, do you want to talk about this one?
Certainly, Mayor Turton.
Thank you.
So this is a 2026 request, and our Community Services Director says the value of the rental is $1,500. And currently in our draft operating budget, we have $10,000 for facility rental donations. So we have adequate if council wishes to proceed.
Okay, so I believe that we have the last 2 years.
Yes,
donated
that's
to
correct.
the-
This is the
yeah.
third year, and yes, we have.
All right. You
Can I
making
make
that
a motion
sir?
to, yes, can I make
Thank
that
you.
motion?
Yep.
please?
Seconder? Counselor Zimmerman? Go ahead, Counselor Elliott.
Okay, $1,500, there's no money exchange, it's numbers. How, like I can't have my head around it, just give them the haul, why do we put $1,500? Why do we even do that? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
So I can give you the accounting entry. It'll go as rental revenue to the hall and come out as an expense. So it's no net revenue or expense to the town. So we're absorbing the cost of staff and keeping that. It only goes forward if that's something that council wishes to do. Much like our other facility rentals that we've given,
Sure.
but we don't say yes to all of them either, so.
Yeah, just, it's a numbers game. We probably have the staff on duty anyway, so do we put extra staff on?
I've never been to that show, but I presume that we do because it's a Saturday and a Sunday, I believe, yeah.
Okay,
So,
I'm supporting it, but I just trying to understand the counting end of it, how that works, and then just,
yeah, it shows up as a general government expense, but the Community Services Department still notes the revenue on it.
thanks.
So if we, Treasurer Duff, if we went over $10,000 in a year, then we would have to, if there was a facility that we wanted to donate, so I can think of a couple. The gala is likely one. The possibly the fall tournament in August in Palmerston is likely another, and the facilities there. And so if we get over 10,000, that is when we have to
Make
come up
it,
with more money. You can be creative or whatever we do.
yeah, that's,
But we're not there yet.
no,
This
this
is
is our,
likely
we're
the
at
first-
0 right
Yep.
now, so.
Okay.
But we're wary that could happen, yes.
So everybody understands what we're doing here? I'm gonna call the question. All in favor? That we had a mover and a second, right?
Yes, Counselor Gunson
Okay.
and Counselor Zimmerman.
Any others? All right, then, the recommendation is moved by Councillor Putnam, it's seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the council receive the rest of the correspondence for information. All in favor of that motion? Carried, thank you. The next, business is, committee minutes, and we have the cultural roundtable of November 24th. I'll ask, Belinda Wick-Graham to present those minutes, please.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Turton. These are the minutes from our November 24th meeting just last week. We had Gordon, the Culture Days Committee, give a recap of that event or number of events, and attached in the schedule is the attendance numbers. So overall, it was a pretty successful year. Some events did really well, some not so well, but overall it was well received, and noted that it didn't require as much work from the committee this year. We're excited to be traveling to Hanover on Thursday night for our joint cultural roundtable meeting with our partners in Hanover and Wellington North. So we will be looking at the things that we accomplished together this year and planning for next year what we're going to do. Speaking of planning, this year we were supposed to be hosting a symposium. It was a very busy year. We accomplished a lot of things, but that was not one of them. So this actual symposium that we're planning for 2026 addresses 3 actions that are in our cultural plan. And we are planning this early in the year. So looking at February 7th, most of the day at the Harrison Community Center. We'll be inviting a lot of the volunteer groups and cultural organizations across Minto for kind of information, learning, sharing best practices, trying to raise up all the groups. Another thing we wanted to note here is that the Culture Roundtable Committee is very interested in partnering with Council at the volunteer dinner on April 23rd to offer what we're calling, I guess, a celebration of cultural and volunteer successes, where we would have volunteer groups put forth names of people within their organizations that they'd like to recognize. So it's not so much a competition against those people. It's just like, we want to give special recognition to this person in our organization, as well as like celebrating any milestones of those organizations, sharing pictures that we can use on social media, as well as at the event, just to celebrate those folks in attendance. So we're hoping that council would be receptive to partnering with the Culture Roundtable on that. We went over our 2026 meeting schedule. We'll maintain our every other month meetings. And then we had a variety of updates from the committee. And our next meeting is at the end of January.
Perfect.
Any questions?
Thank you very much. So we have a recommendation moved by Councillor Zimmerman, seconded by Councillor Elliott, that the Council of the Town of Minto receives the Cultural Roundtable minutes of November 24th, 2025 as information and approves any recommendations contained therein. Questions? It's terrific. I think that's a great idea in reference to the partnership between the Cultural Roundtable and Council at our volunteer banquet. So, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda here is the delegation of authority bylaw, and I'll ask our CAO, Mr. Furtney, to introduce this.
Thank you. Through Mayor Turton, the members of council. Many of you know her, but I'd like to introduce Mrs. Nicole Cleland-Riff. Nicole is one of our two hardworking, tough-skinned frontline staff members here at the municipal office. And our other hardworking, tough-skinned frontline staff member is Mrs. Tammy Cressy. Both Nicole and Tammy have shared their interest and enthusiasm to learn more and participate in projects that affect municipal operations. Both are taking extra courses to improve themselves and their knowledge base. Nicole in particular is working on some AMCTO law and human resource courses, while Tammy has been working on some records management courses. Both have asked for project work that better helps them understand and contribute to the day-to-day operations of the municipality. And this has been very refreshing and appreciated. So in order to punish Nicole, I mean, we asked her to help with the delegation of authority bylaw, which is kind of in line with some of the courses she's been taking over the last year. She has researched, updated, reformatted, and is now going to present this report to council and the associated bylaw. And then the rest of us will be present if council has questions that we can support her with. And Nicole, please proceed.
Linda, will you show her how to turn on that microphone? Thank you. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Turton, to members of council, I'm here today to present Report 2025-014, the Delegation of Authority Bylaw. The Town of Minto first implemented a Delegation of Authority Bylaw in 2018, followed by additional bylaws to delegate special powers such as signing a site plan agreement and temporarily closing a highway. The Delegation of Authority Bylaw is a critical tool for the efficient management of the town's daily operations. By enabling staff and exercise judgment based on their expertise and professional training, the bylaw ensures operations are carried out in accordance with council-approved policies, budgets, and directives. This report outlines the rationale and framework for the bylaw and seeks council's approval for its enactment, ensuring operational efficiency and adherence to approved policies. Key reasons for implementing the Delegation of Authority bylaw include clarity and order, flexibility with legislative changes, and streamlined decision-making. Attached to the report is a supporting document which provides a summary of changes to the Delegation of Authority bylaw. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
So we have a The recommendation moved by Councillor Gunson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives report 2025-014. It's the delegation of authorities bylaw prepared by the administrative assistant for information purposes, and further that the Council of the Town of Minto considers passing an updated delegation of authority bylaw in open counts. This sounds really exciting. Questions for Nicole? No questions? Is there questions that we should be asking?
Through you, Mayor Turton, that's completely up to
Yeah,
you. Everything that I did for the changes is stated in
Sure.
the additional documentation. So if there is any questions with what was changed, I can answer anything of those.
Okay, so you got a good summary of changes to the delegation of authorities bylaw. So if there's no questions, then I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion? That's carried. Thank you very much. So the next time you present in council, it'll be the second time. Or you have speak presented before. But thank you very much, and congratulations on your efforts. We welcome education, and you never know what's in the future. So next item is our annual accessibility update. It's CL 2025-015, and we'll ask Quinn Garecki to present this report. Quinn, welcome.
Thank you. Okay, through you, Mayor Turton, to members of council, my report today is a quick one. It's just our annual accessibility update. We bring it to council at the end of each year to go through what we've done to ensure that we are compliant with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. So this year, or I guess next year, the town's multi-year accessibility plan is scheduled for review and to be updated in 2026. The new plan will be in effect until 2030 and will cover how we plan to comply with the regulations that I mentioned. In 2025, we completed an accessibility desk audit. In May, we were chosen by the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility to participate in a desk audit of our accessibility provisions, which involved submitting documentation and policies that demonstrate that we are compliant with the requirements in the AODA. There were some minor changes that needed to be made to our pedestrian crossovers, but other than that, we were found to be ultimately in compliance with the provisions in the Act, and they closed our desk audit after about a month and a half of back and forth. So that's positive for us. In 2025, the accessibility initiatives that we completed, we used the $10,000 accessibility grant funding program from Wellington County to pay for Julie Sawchuk of Sawchuk Accessibility Consultant Solutions to come and do a full audit of our downtowns. So we did the 3 downtowns, and then we did the 3 arenas and community centers. We did the Norgan, the Palmerston Railway Heritage Museum, and the Lions Park, and the Old Post. So she has provided us with a very comprehensive review of our accessibility, which has given us some great ideas for initiatives to use in the future and to put in our multi-year accessibility plan. So that should be very helpful for next year. And other than that, we do continue to participate in all of the county's Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes. You may remember earlier this year, we appointed a new member, and tomorrow is his first meeting. And then our CBO and maybe our deputy CBO have been participating in the FADM, the Facilities and Accessibility Design Manual committee for the county. They are looking to redo the design manual for all of the county's lower tier municipalities. So I think Terry and I think Wes. Okay, they split it. So they have been doing that too, and I believe that will be ready for maybe next year. So again, I'm here if you have any questions.
So we have a recommendation moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives report CL 2025-015, the annual accessibility update prepared by Deputy Clerk, Manager, People and Culture for information purposes. Questions for Quinn? that report from Julie will not get dusty.
Nope, it come at a great time for us, actually. We every year the county offers that $10,000, so it'll be very helpful to help us choose projects in the future and to go through the update to our multi-year accessibility plan for next year.
Go ahead, Belinda.
Yeah, the other thing to note too is the ROD grant that is coming back out in January from the Ministry of Rural Affairs includes accessibility. So businesses can access up to $10,000 grant to help with accessibility. So right in the new year, we'll be getting these reports out to our businesses to not just access our grants, but to access hopefully some ministry funding as well. It was good timing.
So I think I told you the other day that the county has hired Julie as well to do some work for the county. I know Councillor Balmer, who is the chair of the accessibility in the county, was at Julie's presentation and he was pretty impressed. So that's great. So questions? Any other questions? All in favor of the motion? That's carried. Thank you very much. Clint? We're into announcements. You want to start, Councillor Elliott?
I can. This Thursday, the 4th.
If you want to speak into your mic, please.
Microphone.
Oh, yeah, that mic. This Thursday, Kara Smith is performing at the Norgan. She was supposed to be last Thursday, but a storm kind of permitted us to close it. So she is performing this week, a Christmas show, and it starts at 7:30, and that's the 4th. And I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Councillor Potovitz.
Yes, I'm probably stealing some of Councillor Zimmerman's thunder here, but the Palmerston Santa Claus Parade this Saturday at starting at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Councillor Gunson.
You have something. So just want to congratulate the Minto Mad Dog U11 team for winning the regional silver stick and wing this past weekend. Final game went into double overtime, and now they go to Niagara Falls January 8th to the 11th to compete in the international silver stick. So I wish them good luck there.
Thank you. Councillor Dirksen.
I have nothing tonight. I'll see your long list there.
Well, yeah, so.
Councillor Zimmerman, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. Just to add on to Councillor Podnowitz's remarks about the parade in Palmerston, Saturday night, the Cadets are also collecting food donations to the food bank along the route. So if you can bring some food items, that'd be great. Let's see. Let's start with Friday. For the kids that like the new movie out, it's called Zootopia 2. It's held over again, and it could be for the next couple of weeks. Just a special note on Saturday, the show is not going to be Saturday night. It will be at 11 a.m. on Saturday. Let's see. This weekend is the Harrison Curling Club Christmas Rocks House Tour. So if you haven't got your tickets, please get them. And that runs from 10 until 4. And Harrison Home Hardware may have some tickets and a few other people. You can check their website for the names. Let's see. Already talked about that. Here's a special one. Mental Arts Council's holding an online auction. I just glazed over that yesterday. They've got at least 100 different items to bid on. You need to go on your computer, unfortunately, and register to sign into the auction and then start bidding on things. There are some incredible things that you can pick up maybe for a real good bargain. Bidding on all that stuff goes on December 9th, so don't delay. Another thing is Leslie Motors is having their annual food and toy drive as usual. Stopped in there today. They've got lots of good things for children, especially like all ages of children, not just young ones, but old ones too. And if you can find your way to spare something, that would be much appreciative. They're going to be doing that until the 19th, I think it is. And then just a little plug for our tri-fire service people. Mapleton, tomorrow night in Moorfield, they're holding a turkey bingo. All you bingo fans, 7 o'clock at the community hall in Moorfield. And then Friday night, both Drayton and Mount Forest are having their Santa Claus parades, 7 o'clock. So something you can go attend if you wish. And that's probably enough.
Thank you, Councillor Zimmerman. Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Thank you. Just a reminder or a notice for people, because we keep hearing people who say they don't know anything about it, that the annual Christmas dinner will be happening on Christmas Day in Palmerston. Sit-down dinners at 1 o'clock. Pickup meals are available between 11:30 and 12:30. People just have to show up and we'll give them whatever they need. That's it. Anybody who wants to volunteer or bake pies, just contact me.
Mr. Ferdinand, how's your pie baking ability?
It is excellent, sir.
Okay.
Oh, great. How many?
Whoops.
I can't commit.
Should I put you down for 4 or 6 or 2?
We'll talk.
I'd just like to send a big thank you out November 29th. Some of us were in Clifford at a retirement party. Chief Wayne Lewis, after 40 years at the Clifford Fire Hall, 20 years as a grunt guy, and now the last 20 years, the chief. I'm saying the chief position isn't a grunt position, but 40 years in our fire service in Minto is absolutely amazing. And we wish him happy retirement. It was amazing the number of people that were out that evening. A lot of retired firemen and women, and it was great to see. So Mr. Dan Ellis is the new chief in Clifford, and we certainly wish him well. He comes with great credentials, and certain he'll do a great job. And in talking with Wayne, 20 years ago, he stepped into the chief's job with practical experience. This guy, Mr. Dan Ellis, is coming with a great education. He's an educated young man, and I'm sure he's going to do some great things up there in Clifford. So thank you, Dan Ellis. Thank you, Wayne Lewis. Next item. Resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, second by Councillor Potnovitz, that the Committee of the Whole convenes into regular council. All in favor of the motion? Thank you. That's carried. Resolution moved by Councillor Zimmerman, second by Councillor Gunson, that the Council of the Town of Minto ratifies the motions made in Committee of the Whole. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. We have some bylaws. We have a resolution moved by Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Councillor Potnovitz, that bylaw 2025-070 be approved and read a first, second, and third time and passed in open council and sealed with the seal of the corporation. That is the delegation of authority bylaw. All in favor of the motion? It's carried. Thank you. Confirmatory, moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that bylaw 2025-071 to confirm actions of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Minto respecting a meeting held December 2nd, 2025 be read a first, second, and third time, passed in open council and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor of the motion? Thank you. That's carried. I neglected to say in the announcements that we've had a bunch of snow lately, and I just wanted to commend our public works guys and gals on the wonderful work that they're doing out there in the community, cleaning our streets and making it safe for us. So, and I'm also saying that all of our staff works hard, but when there's an issue out there that our staff is needed, whether it's broken water mains or something at the arena, our staff do step up. So thank you to all yous. Adjournment. Resolution moved by Councillor Gunson, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the council of the town of Minto adjourns to meet again at the call of the mayor. All in favor of the motion? That's carried. Thank you very much.